Welcome to episode 4 of the Tapping Into podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Homeopathy, an award-winning cult beauty and well-being brand steeped in ritual, powered by nature, focused on self-care and finessed by science. Over the past few weeks, I've been using Homeopathy's restful sleep pillow mist right before bed. It's got all of my favourite aromas: lavender, bergamot, geranium and chamomile, and it's such a beautiful aid for a restful night. If you too would like to feel relaxed, restored and renewed, thanks to Homeopathy, Tapping Into podcast listeners can receive an exclusive 20% discount using the code TAPPINGFORMUMS. This week we chat to American homeopath Krista Rivet. After becoming frustrated with chasing symptoms and never getting answers for her son's chronic health issues, she discovered homeopathy. When she witnessed healing like never before, she had to know more, so went on to study homeopathy and became a homeopath. Her passions and areas of focus are chronic, children's health and behavioural issues, mental health and women's health. In this episode we discuss what homeopathy is, how it works, how it supports our own internal healing powers, and where to start with a home basic kit. And we also chat about how a lot of the time what the child needs, the mum also needs too. Just so interesting. You can follow Krista at Krista Rivet, KristaRivet.homeopathy on Instagram, or visit KristaRivet.com, and all the details are in the show notes too. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Do jump into our DMs and keep us posted. Leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. Enjoy! Welcome to the Tapping Into podcast, Krista Rivet, all the way from
Buffalo, New York.
Hello, in America, yay. So we're on a bit of a time difference, but very early for you. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm so excited to talk about homeopathy. A little bit of background as to why I want to talk about homeopathy is because so many of my own membership ladies, these moms, were talking about these remedies. We have a WhatsApp group and they were recommending this and that for this and that, as people were saying, oh, what do I do with my child? They keep getting sick, or, bronchitis or this and that happening. And I was like, oh God, years ago, my mom took me to a homeopathist. And it obviously did something, So in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I need to jump on this bandwagon, really not understanding much. And so they recommended, and I bought myself, for anyone who can virtually see, the Helios Homeopathy Basic 18 Remedy Kit. So it's got a bunch of different things and a little booklet, which is actually an amazing lifesaver, isn't it? Because I can just look up the symptom and then it'll tell me which one to give. And I bought it because we were going to Thailand last Christmas. So this is 4 or 5 months ago. And prior to that, I had gone through bottles of Calpol and Nurofen, and it wasn't that was something that I did. I gave my kids a lot of pain medication, and I guarantee you, I can go into my cupboard now. The 2 huge bottles that I bought to bring to Thailand have not been opened. They are still in their boxes, and so that's 4 or 5 months on, and that is why I want to talk to you about homeopathy, because almost like I went into it thinking, I'll just give it a go. I had no preconceived notions, no real expectations, and a little pill here or there. And the things started to happen, like their symptoms dropped away or vanished altogether. And one little dose sometimes is enough to shift the thing. And I don't understand that, and my mind is blown. And I really want everyone to realize that there is a whole other way of supporting your family.
Yeah.
Not in the way that I had perceived to be the right way, like what I suppose most mothers do, unless informed otherwise. So doing a little bit of research and came across your page, and you were so enthusiastic and supportive of the mum and family experience that I thought this would be a brilliant conversation to bring. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to have this chat.
Well, I'm so happy you reached out and honored. And yeah, I'm glad my passion is coming through on my page because being a mom and like you just said, I had experienced all of that. And yeah, I love working. That's primarily my practice is moms and their children or women and children, because it is just my own personal experience of how which I'm sure we'll talk about how I got into this. It's just like nothing else. And that power that you feel to step into that, to be able to care for your family is like nothing else. And yeah, and I appreciate you reaching out because I love the tapping too, which I can't wait to listen to more of your podcasts and dive into that because I have done that as well on my journey.
Yeah, you're both very powerful. And then that's the thing too,
Yeah.
it's like empowering
Yes.
tools. And that, yeah, so there's a real synchronicity there,
It really
and
is.
also natural and safe and
Hmm.
easy and relatively cheap and inexpensive to use, I suppose, once you've got the hang of things. So tell us your story into homeopathy. Like, how did it even get
Yeah.
on the radar?
Yeah, so I have 4 children, and at the time I had 2 at the time, and my son, who was 4 at the time, he's about to be 19 this week. So that's how long ago I've been using homeopathy, and yeah, discovered we always say it finds us. I'm like, I think it found me. So he had chronic ear infections, I feel like from birth, like just that chronic congestion, ear infection, always on antibiotics, just one thing after another. And I didn't know anything about homeopathy. I'd never heard of it. But how I thought, I question a lot. I'm very curious and always wanted to be a doctor, like something in the medical field, like just fascinated with health. So, bringing them, and it just, something wasn't sitting right. I'm like, but what is going on inside of him? Like my daughter, who was 2 years older at the time, who was, well, he started, like I said, when he was an infant with all these things, I had enough. So I'm like, but what is going on in him? So we finally, after like so many antibiotics, tubes in his ears, his adenoids were removed, I'm like, what is causing this fluid in his ears? And the answer I got was, well, that's the $1 million question. That was literally the answer from the ear, nose, throat specialist. And granted, they're fabulous at what they do, but it just wasn't enough for me. I'm like, okay, but we're still giving him antibiotics. Then he had MRSA, which is that, scary. I was terrified of this bacteria that was in his ear as well. So I was like, I need to know more. I need to figure out what's going on, and not even figure out, but just get to the root of why his body is allowing all this. So I don't remember how I came across homeopathy. I think just Googling and being a mom of like, I'm not stopping, I want to get to understand what is going on in him. Like, why does he have this and not my daughter? And so I found a local homeopath and brought him to her. And that I will not ever forget that. I call it magic, but now I know it's not. But she asked him all these questions, and now it makes sense. But at the time, it's like, well, what do you like to eat? And how do you sleep? And I'm like, what the heck does this have to do with his ears? Like, I just want to fix his ears. And so anyway, she gave me this remedy to take home. And she's like, give it to him 1 dose tonight and then tomorrow morning, and we'll see. So meanwhile, I had an antibiotic from the ear, nose, throat, stuff to put in his nose to kill the bacteria, eardrops, like the whole thing. And I was terrified because I was very health anxious at the time. And I did not give him that. And I gave him the remedy. The discharge in his ear stopped. He woke up in an amazing mood because he was very cranky. And I could not believe it. Literally overnight, his whole energy had shifted. And I kept repeating it according to her directions, and we followed up with her. But then 10 days later, I had to go back to the ear, nose, throat. And he looked in his ear and he's like, this looks amazing. He's like, it's cleared up beautifully. And I didn't use any of the stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to know more of what this is. So I researched and found the school that I went to, which is in Toronto in Canada, the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine, and enrolled and did it all virtual because I went on to have 2 more kids and completed the whole thing. So it's never too late either because, and then started practicing with the public about 5 years ago. So that was, it was a beautiful gift. And I see that those times of frustration. And, it was because of that I found homeopathy, or it found me. And then I went on to become a homeopath. And so, I'm really grateful for that now, and thankful that that happened. Unfortunately, what he had to go through. And now it's just been, and he just kept improving, with just no more antibiotics, and he's thriving, and all the children are, because now that's, with my two newer ones, that's all we did as well. So
That's amazing. I suppose there's a lot of crossover with my story. And I think probably a lot of people who end up in a healing modality of some description, it comes from some form of pain or trauma.
Yeah.
They then find their miracle magic pill and then decide, well, wow, I need to share this with the world. So yeah, that was the same with me.
Yeah.
It's amazing how just, this is probably the path that you were meant to be on anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just, all these little steps get you there. And then it ultimately benefits you, your family, and then all the people that you support as a result.
Yeah. And homeopathy really, which we'll go into, is it's a way of life. And when you understand how it works, or what's going on, or why it works, your whole perception of life shifts. So I suffered severe health anxiety. I was like Googling this, and just like so many anxious things. And then fast forward a little bit, when that 4-year-old son was about 10, or he was about 10. My 6-year-old son, under him, like my third child, was diagnosed with cancer too. And it was a very rare form. And then I also had my 1-year-old at the time. So I had all my 4 kids. So that itself was also a pivotal, you can imagine the fear when we heard that, but how homeopathy supported me emotionally to go through that. It shifts you from within. Like, that's how it works. It's shifting you from within and stimulating your own body. But it allowed me to embrace that experience and help treat him alongside of the traditional treatments that we had to do. But again, that was a blessing. Like, in the moment, it was the biggest fear ever. But then 2 years out of it, it was, again, I look back, and he's 15 now. So it's been about 7 years, 6-7 years, and he's thriving. And we use homeopathy with everything that we did. And the doctors, the nurses were shocked that he didn't need what they were offering for the side effects. And because I had a homeopath helping me through that. But just not only that, how it just shifted my whole my ability to surrender and embrace that experience as a growth. Like, it really was empowering, really, what we went through. And now it just keeps building. And I'm so thankful to homeopathy because of the philosophy behind it. And it just allows you to embrace what comes, because it builds trust in your body, because our bodies are designed to heal. And, as we can see, when you break a bone, your body knows what to do.
Yeah.
When you get a cut, we grow a baby. Like, you think of how powerful our bodies are. And so homeopathy understands that, and it uses that same power, that creates symptoms to then go in the proper direction to heal. So it really builds a trust in your body's ability. And it's really there's like tapping everything. You're tapping into your power, and shifting things. And so this is a medicine that stimulates that same, we call it a vital force, or life force, but vital force in homeopathy. And so our bodies are running from this vital force. And so homeopathy, the right remedy, resonates with that and stimulates it to start healing. So your body is healing itself. So the medicine, the remedies, we call them, isn't actually doing the work. It's the catalyst. So when that enters your body, it stimulates your body to go in the right direction of healing. And that's why it's so amazing, because we're so amazing. And yeah, it's just, it's like nothing else when you witness it. Like, it's like magic. It's like, how the heck what's going on?
Like, this is mad. It's like this secret that we have been, that's been hidden from us, isn't it? This idea that we can actually heal ourselves. And I suppose it comes into tapping and Reiki and energy work and all these other modalities. I suppose that's why they're becoming more popular, is because we're realizing that actually what we have been told works to heal us doesn't really heal the cause. It just has a surface level impact, doesn't it? And benefits well, we won't go into that because it's a whole other other podcast, but like benefits the few with a little bit of cash, right?
Well, yeah.
That's definitely another topic altogether.
Yeah.
But this magic information that, and like you say, this focus on trust that our body has the
Yeah.
ability to do what it needs to do to get back
Yeah.
into balance, with the right support or the right
Yeah. Yeah.
environment. And homeopathy is providing that nudge or that direction or that environment.
The nudge is a great word because we use that very often. It's nudging it and it's getting momentum going. And that's exactly it. So, and the other thing to think about is symptoms, like you said earlier, other, allopathic forms of medicine and, are treating the symptom. So whether it's a fever, you have diarrhea, you have anxiety, you have constipation, whatever physical symptom, the medication is matched to the symptom, but the symptom is not the problem. So that's really key in understanding the fact that we are built an innate ability to heal. The symptom is the result of the actual disturbance that, there's something within us that created that symptom. It doesn't come from outside of us. So that's the level this gets to, that disturbance. And then, like we just said, nudges it along in the right direction to then uproot. And the symptom will just all of a sudden disappear or lessen up and so that's, again, the symptoms are important because we use them to determine the whole picture, but they're not treating the symptom. So that's where, too, a lot of people like, I have a fever, what do I give? And that in itself, why there'll be like 5 remedies, because it's not treating the fever, it's treating the person. So homeopathy treats the whole person, not the symptom. So you can't just say, well, what do I take for constipation? Well, I have to understand so much more because it's the whole person that's being treated. There's no one remedy for constipation. There's no one remedy even for fever, like in the acute illness, because again, did it come on after a shock? Did it come on really fast? Is it high? Did it come on very slow? Is it low? So all these things. And within that, you can choose maybe the top 3 remedies and have a good
it's a starter, isn't there?
Yeah, so that's home prescribing. And then with what I do, why you'd see a homeopath is chronic issues, it's one remedy for the whole person. So it's literally like a connecting the dots picture. So if you have things that are chronic, which means you've been living with them for months or they keep recurring, you can't treat that at home because you're not, again, matching a symptom to each of those things. So for an example, if you're anxious and you don't sleep, or you have skin issues and you constipation, it's one remedy for all those things.
That's why, Western medicine is so focused on, there's a liver doctor, and then there's a heart specialist, and there's a brain specialist and everything. And for me, and from everything I've learned energetically, and they're all, again, symptoms of thought patterns and energy that we have inherited or absorbed or really rooted in the deep subconscious. And I mean, yes, there's life-saving things that can be given from a heart surgeon, etc. But really, like, none of that is addressing the person's mindset and
the disturbance that created all those things. Yeah. And exactly, absolutely. Like in emergency situations, we need that. There's nobody can argue that. Absolutely. But in chronic, where they're missing the mark, because exactly, you're on 5 different medications for 5 different things, and you're going to 5 different specialists, like you just said. And that's my experience, like going to all these specialists for my son. I'm just like, he's not healing, and I don't want to give him this medication because they kept piling it on, which obviously we know has side effects. And we're not getting to the deep core of the vital force. Like, this is the core of all of those symptoms, is one entity, like the vital force, we call it. And when that's disturbed, then we get all these symptoms in different ways. And that's so unique for everybody. So that's really important too. Homeopathy is so, so individual. So like I said, if you're coming for like maybe a similar diagnosis, you're going to have 2 different remedies because you're not the same person, even though the diagnosis is the same. And that's where in homeopathy, the diagnosis is irrelevant. We don't need that, because it can be helpful, but it's all about how you experience that and how you express it, which is very, very different than the next person.
Yeah, I was kind of, while you were talking there, I was thinking earlier, like, it doesn't really matter what's wrong. In a way, it's like how it's presenting,
Yeah.
and then the remedy
Yeah.
is like naturally finds the root and starts to internally resolve it.
And the mind, so it connects the mind, body, mental, emotional, the physical, and, energetically. And that's, so mental health and, mental, emotional, like anxieties, depression,
Yeah.
obsessive compulsive disorders, all of that is also, it's so deep. And that's the level we go to of the mental, emotional, even when you're coming just for something physical. So it's that deep. So if you're coming for a skin issue, for an example, or a constipation, or, something that's a physical complaint, we go that deep. So the case taking is literally from birth, even in utero, all the way up till now. So it's an hour and a half long just for a skin issue,
Wow.
because we're not treating the skin, because again, the skin is a reflection of the internal. And you go to the dermatologist, you're in and out in 5 minutes, and they give you a cream and off you go.
Yeah,
And it might look
steroid.
like it's gone, but it's really not. And it's actually being suppressed. So suppression is a very big, big thing in our world right now. And then that disturbance that created that is still there. So whether you're moving organ or anything like that, it's deeper than that. And so we go to the mental, emotional level, like your traumas, your past, how you feel, and that remedy is chosen for all of that. And so everything improves. So that's the beautiful thing. You come for one thing, and then you're sleeping better, and you're pooping better, and you feel happier, and
Your
your
skin
skin's
looks
getting better.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
So yeah.
it's interesting. These two words, disturbances and then suppression. God,
Yeah.
we the suppression piece is actually huge, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
there's so much going on. We naturally suppress all of our emotions, so we're not naturally not allowing ourselves to let go. And I suppose which is what tapping helps us do, and other modalities,
Yeah.
if we encourage a letting go, from childhood onwards, then we're not naturally suppressing, we're naturally letting go. I wonder, would
Yeah.
that have a big impact on physical health in later life, because we have just experienced each situation individually and moved on from it, taken what we are learning from it, but not holding on to it the way we've kind of naturally been
Yeah.
conditioned to do so.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful, because a lot of times it's very common and wanted, really, and expected. When I give a remedy with a lot of suppression, crying, there's a lot of crying and release, or even anger. And some people are like, I feel worse. I'm angry today. And I'm like, okay, that's been
Good.
buried, because that's like, upon the intake, it's like, no, I never cry, or I don't get angry. And we all have that. Like, that's human nature to feel that. And when we're in an environment that we weren't allowed to express, perhaps as a child, or, we're shamed for perhaps saying your opinion, that gets stuffed down. And we so often forget, like our minds think, oh, I'm over it. But our bodies, like you said, energetically hold on to that energy, and then it comes out as even autoimmune diseases and chronic illness later in life. And that's, again, we connect all of that, because that's where the intake goes. And versus, you go, modern medicine doesn't, clearly the stress and the illness is there, because the doctor, we all know stress level, it's caused by stress. But then what do they do with that? What are you supposed to do? Like, that's
It's
that's
almost
harder.
annoying hearing the impact stress has from a
Yeah.
doctor, because it's like they just blame everything on stress,
And then
but they
off you go.
aren't able to provide any form of stress relief.
Yeah.
They actually do go say, like, oh, go meditate and stuff, but actually,
But again, that's
meditation
hard. Yeah.
doesn't naturally fit for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
also, that doesn't help you let go of serious trauma.
Yeah.
Meditation, if you have had very serious trauma, could be the worst place to send somebody, because they could
Yeah.
go into absolute abreaction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's why I love too, the partner, like the, collaborating and partnering with other modalities. Like if seeing a homeopath, and if there is a lot of mental, emotional things that need to come up, to have like tapping or a therapist as well to help when those things are moving, up. It's hard. Exactly. Like you said, if you don't have the proper support to, go through that, that's scary and frightening. And perhaps the person isn't ready to, what's going to come up
Yeah,
yeah, for
totally.
sure.
So these disturbances, where do they come from?
Again, that's so individual. I think, again, it's never the events or the trauma experience. It's how we perceive and interpret them and absorb them, right? So again, like, well, I hear people, well, I had that and I'm fine. Well, maybe you didn't perceive it as such as someone else did it. And again, I think that's another whole podcast, I think too. Like you said, are we born like handing down and from generations and past lives, which you could keep going. And perhaps we're coming into this life already with that energetic, we call them miasms, even like holding on to ancestral trauma, that remedies can get so deep and powerful to help unlock, like it's really like unlocking what's been stuck, even if it's not ours. We can kind of come into this life with other things, or even absorb other things.
I
I
just
guess
had
that's
full body shivers. Can homeopathy release past
yeah.
life programming?
Yeah, again, I mean, I love working with other modalities too, that, you have people that can kind of energy healers, but yeah, we call them miasms, and they get really deep to kind of unlock that past inherited trait that's been imprinted in the energetic body, not the genetic. It's deeper than our genes. And this is the power of this. And the irony is that this has been over 200 years old. Like homeopathy is nothing new, but yet it just feels like it's like, crazy futuristic stuff. And it's really not. Yeah.
And so talk about the history of it then. So 200 years old doesn't feel very long, really.
No.
Think of like acupuncture and acupressure maybe is 5,000 years old.
Well,
So
oh yeah, go ahead.
homeopathy does feel quite new.
Yeah. And the like cures like has been around, like that theory of like cures like, but Samuel Hahnemann is the founder of homeopathy. And he found that by, it was back when malaria was really rampant, and he's a medical doctor, and he was discouraged kind of like with what they were using, like bloodletting and purging, like really horrific back then. And so he wanted a more gentle way of helping to heal people. And he found the bark of this cinchona tree. When he consumed it, he got the same symptoms as those that had malaria. So he's like, so he took that and he diluted it. So that's, again, the whole premise of what homeopathy is. It's things that can cause sickness and poison, but when they're diluted, they release the energetic healing ability, and all the toxins are gone because it's diluted. So he diluted that same substance that made him ill. And when he gave it to the people that were sick with malaria, they started improving and they got better. So that was the first remedy. And and so it just was born from there. And then, over time, creating new remedies, and remedies are, from plants, animals, minerals, even diseased tissues, there's everything. And when you take that substance, that some of them are toxic and some aren't, and you dilute it, the more you dilute it, the more powerful it becomes. And that's very opposite from so that's the whole concept is hard to grasp, because we lose trust in our bodies. So for one, we got to begin to trust, and understanding that the higher the number on the vial, that means it's diluted more times, and it actually becomes like stronger, so to speak. Yeah.
That is because I always think like, oh, I want arnica, I want 200C. But in my mind, that's because it's 200 times more powerful or whatever, but actually it's 200 times diluted,
which is actually resonating deeper. So it can deeply get to the level of the vital force, because again, it's energetic based. It's more of a quantum medicine, really, because it's deeper than the physical body. And that's where, again, it's amazing, because that's why you can use it with other modalities or other even prescription meds. If you're on something, there's no interaction, like there's zero, because it's literally at a different level. So there's,
So, okay, so it's not actually impacting the physical body, it's impacting the energetic body.
yeah. And
Right.
when that's stimulated, which is our vital force, then that starts going in the right direction. And then our physical body responds.
Adapts
Yeah.
accordingly. Right.
Yeah.
Which is then the reverse. So just playing this out, the energetic disturbance, which could be the emotion, a negative emotion that we feel
Yeah.
from a particular experience, then if left in the body, manifests in the physical, which is creating the
Yeah.
symptom.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And it could
That's
be a shock too. Like that's where, how many times do we hear too, like after a stressful event, people get sick, or ever since, I hear like it's been ever since, like, a loss or a grief, like a passing of a family member or an accident or even a financial loss. And then someone has a chronic illness diagnosis. That is so very common. And that's what we're like, detectives, when we do a case taking and we go and we're like, oh, so it was ever since, never
Yeah,
well since.
I'm
Like,
exactly the same. I always say to my
yeah,
trainees, think of yourself as a detective, like you're going
yeah,
back on that journey, that timeline with them to find the root cause.
yeah,
Where's the event? And I always say, what did they make that experience mean? What was
yeah.
the belief or decision made based on that
And we
trauma?
don't have to know that. That's the thing with homeopathy, because again,
Yeah.
we take with what is being presented right now at a state, but upon case taking, if we find that or that, and I love the aha moment in a client and the light bulb goes off, like, oh, I didn't even realize that that's when I started, or, even the awareness in the client, like healing starts in the intake, I find, because the consultation, I'll never forget when I saw my first homeopath, it's like a therapy session. And because you're being heard, it's a space, there's no judgment. I'm not telling you have to do this. There's no protocols. There's no cleanses. There's no, like when I ask about foods, sometimes people tell me, I think what I want, I'm like, I don't care what you eat. Like you eat whatever you want. I just want to know, what do you crave? Because all of that helps determine for me to come up with the remedy, because it's a remedy picture. And if they crave salty foods or spicy or sweets, like, I don't care, I'm not here to tell you what to eat. It's just, again, like a detective, like just really understanding you, like the essence. It's really an essence of who you are. And that matches the essence of the remedy. And then that's when it comes together, they resonate, and then the momentum gets going. And that's very deep prescribing. That's when you see a homeopath. And home prescribing, like we talked about a little bit earlier, was like colds and flus and all of that. You can learn, like, that's my passion, is to educate mothers or caregivers to do that at home, because it's an art, and it can be confusing and overwhelming, but I try to take that out to really simplify. And if you have like 10 remedies, even 5 just to start, like they can cover so much, because the remedy doesn't treat the symptom, it treats the person. So that one remedy can do so many amazing things. Yeah, it's great. And arnica is always a great one to start out with, because that's more like that one is, it's like if you have an injury, you just know to go take arnica. So that's a beautiful one to start with too.
I noticed that some of my bottles are very few doses left in them compared to the others. So the aconite.
Oh, aconite. Yeah, I was going to say that's in my top 5.
Yeah, the arnica.
Yeah.
The what was it? Pulsetta or
Pulsatilla.
Pulsatilla, and then the Nux Vom.
Nux Vomica, yeah.
And Rus Tox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Nux Vomica is amazing to have too. The Nux Vomica arnica, aconite, 100%. That's like probably my favorite remedy. And
yeah, I've barely any of that left. I'm
yeah,
gonna have to get some kind of how do you refill these things?
Yeah, I'm sure through Helios you can.
Direct,
I'm sure that they have refills, or you can just buy bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had written down there something. Oh, when you were saying about the resonance of the remedy, but basically, does it kickstart the body to remind itself who it is? Like,
yeah, I love that. How you just said that is really nice. That's exactly what it does. It comes in and almost gives a nudge to be like, hey, you know what you're doing. I'm going to guide you, or I'm going to get kickstarted. It's because it's a catalyst. So
Yes.
that's exactly what it's doing. Yeah, you said it very well. Or it's igniting your body to start doing what it needs to do. Because again, a fever, and again, when I teach and my passion, it's really about understanding you and your power. And then you start to understand homeopathy. So I really love, like when you learn homeopathy, you learn about how powerful you are. And when you understand the power, then you can understand homeopathy. And because it's really getting in there, and like a fever, for an example, our body is so smart, like it's heating up, like that's brilliant. And so why are we suppressing that? Because of out of fear, because we were told to, and most times we're not trusting our body. So when you come in with aconite, for an example, and you give it, you're supporting the body with what it's already doing. So you're getting under it like a cheerleader, and you're kind of like, here, I'm going to help you. And then the fever comes down because you're helping it do what it's already doing versus stopping it. So it's really supportive.
Yeah, that because like that's when I would have gone in with the Nurofen and Calpol, and actually
Yeah.
they're now saying to not give it straight away.
Yeah.
To let
Okay.
the body have a bit more time with the fever. So that's interesting though, that kind of that's basically what you would do, is you go in
Yeah.
with the chilling support rather
Yeah.
than suppressant, which is what we've kind of naturally been conditioned to do.
Yeah, which I get. I mean, being a mom, it's scary. And even a 2-year-old, like no one wants to have that, or an ear infection. So an ear infection too, like your body it's screaming, like it's speaking. And so we're going to go in and stimulate and catalyze with the right remedy to start pushing it in the right direction, to then do what it needs to do to recalibrate itself, to rebalance, to then uproot, like to heal that ear infection. But I get it. It's, and again, it's trusting and leaning into when you understand. If it's not life threatening, then and even, our perception of, and again, that's why I love treating moms and helping moms, because a lot of times they come with their children, and I can see and feel in the mom that they need some support with
As well.
anxiety and mental, emotional. And so then the child can feel that as well. But yeah, it really is coming in and encouraging your body to do what it knows how to do.
This is really just about energetics, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
the energy, it's and learning about homeopathy helps you learn about energy and
Yeah.
vibrations and how everything manifests in the energy field. So not just the physical body, but the kind of layers of density that we encompass and take up. And that is the power, isn't it? That's the knowledge that's really helpful in navigating life when you have a real understanding of
Yeah.
energy.
That's it. And I think, like I said, now back kind of where I was saying with my events that came in that were like traumatizing, or my biggest fear, because I would be terrified of cancer growing up, like just, and now I don't. So because of that, and me learning about homeopathy and becoming a homeopath, it's so much easier now. And it's been a work, and it's a journey. Like that's my journey. And to be able to surrender to what life, whether it's a health issue or just things that you're putting resistance to. I can see when I'm putting resistance to something and that's happening and outside of me, and just to go with it. And again, it is that very homeopathic way of living, like stepping in, trusting what comes your way, because you can't change it. You don't have to like it, but so to be able to work with it versus resisting and fighting, because again, that energy is very, very different, when you go into a situation, the intent of what's happening within us, if something is happening outside of us. So it truly has changed my life. We really,
Yeah, and you're preventing further stuff happening to you down the line, because it's how you react to these situations that determines, how you're going to feel in the future around in your body and stuff. So you doing all this work now and clearing through so much, I assume, let's touch wood now, that in the future you will that your body will, maybe be more resilient. Like, where does it connect with resilience?
Yes. And so I think, like we just said, energetically, when you step into and trust what life brings, without control is a big thing, which is suppression. We're trying to control what happens around us all the time, where it has to go this way or else. And that just creates stress in your body because you're resisting what is when you're trying to control. But health-wise, yes, physically. So susceptibility is a huge thing. So again, it's never the bacteria around us. It's not the virus. It's, are we susceptible to it, and to what extent? So, seeing, we all have that experience within our family when we all have the flu or a stomach bug or something, and maybe one of us don't get it and one of us do, or we get it, but it's very mild, and then the other person has it severe. So it's like, well, like right there, that's proof that it's not just about the virus or
Yes.
allergies, for an example. It has to be something in us. So right there, that was my mindset and how I found homeopathy, because I'm like, there's something like, why are we ignoring our bodies? Like, we have a big role to play. It's like, it takes two to tango here. It's not just that. And so when you strengthen deep within at the vital force level, you become less susceptible to those things. So over time, when you're exposed to those germs that we're all fearful of, they won't penetrate because your vital force is really strengthened. So yes, that has everything. And then you're less susceptible. But we're supposed to get sick too. And that's, again, the trust. It's
like
okay to have a cold. Yeah. And to trust those symptoms like a discharge or diarrhea. Like, we want to stop that. And we're fighting against what our body's trying to get out. So let's support it versus coming at it and resisting. So yeah, it just builds a better resilience overall.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of COVID, right? So I know it's a controversial topic, but like your description there of, a family getting sick and some people getting more sick than others just made me really think of it. So kind of what have you seen from your world around how to support ourselves in that way, maybe?
Yeah, well, for one, learning at home, prescribing home kit like you have. So when symptoms do come, you can fully support without suppressing. But to see a homeopath and have like a constitutional remedy is what we call it. That's specifically chosen for you in that moment to take, that's really, really helps uproot, whether you're in an active, you can use that, or, when you have a homeopathic care or homeopath working with you, then they're there to support those acute symptoms as well. But yeah, over time, when you take a constitutional remedy, then you're just less susceptible to that. And then not only that, the mental emotional releases if there's a lot of fear involved, because many people are very fearful. And that fear alone lowers your immune system. And the irony is you're going to get it more than the person that's, if you're doing all those outside things like hand sanitizing and all that out of fear, and you're sheltering yourself, that's a disservice, really, because you're trying, again, that control issue, right? There's no trust in the body, and it's all like, it's only outside of me. I have to stop it. And that alone, as you know, is a lower vibration and makes you're more susceptible to illness. So yeah, just so that when you get a homeopathic constitutional remedy, it helps shift the mental emotional level to help let go, like we said earlier, of that fear, or help bring the awareness to us. So much awareness comes up when you start using homeopathy at a deep level, because to be able to let go, or to make those decisions too of, I'm gonna, if you're stuck in something and it's like, I just hate my life and I hate my job and all this. And after a remedy, I've had people, oh, I've quit my job. Or like they all of a sudden have that awareness or the power or the confidence to follow through with, to maybe help let go of things on the outside that weren't helping their health.
Amazing. So how have you seen homeopathy support long COVID? Because I know a few people suffering from it.
Yeah, no, it's been very profound. There's been so many studies. There's a lot of science too out of India, because I know they had obviously that was a big thing. But no, it's for long COVID, again, when you treat deep down at the vital force level and you're stimulated, you can get in, and have been remedies, definitely specifically more for certain symptoms of long COVID, like even the loss of taste, or just never felt, again, that never well since, right? Never well since COVID.
The energy, I think a lot of people have suffered from, just never recovering their life force energy.
Yeah. And acute. Absolutely. I mean, COVID, there's a lot of remedies that the top ones, like during the active, if you are actively sick with it. Absolutely. But yeah, the long haul COVID is, there's lots of support there. It'd
be better to get consultation to kind of work
That
through?
you would want to see a homeopath
Yeah.
for any long haul symptoms like that, because that's kind of out of the realm of home prescribing. Home prescribing is great for the acute moment, like a fever comes on. And even then, that can be overwhelming, especially if you don't have a kit. At home, it's like, well, what are you going to do? So it's great to have a home kit like you have. And then if you have a homeopath, most homeopaths are there during acute times to help support, to say, oh no, take this remedy. But then if something's like long-term or keeps recurring, like the long haul COVID or any, fevers once a month, for an example, or I get strep throat every year, in that moment, you can learn to treat it, but to uproot why you're susceptible to it is why you would see,
Yeah.
you need a practitioner. Yeah.
What about allergies in families? So I know of multiple families that have, the mum may have an allergy and then the kids have allergies, and they're quite severe, the peanuts,
Yeah.
dairy, and the symptoms of them are very severe in terms of vomiting, diarrhea, and illness, and then what is it when your throat closes? That one.
Oh, the anaphylactic.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and there's times where you need emergency care right away, and thank goodness we have those that available, right? Like an EpiPen or something like that. Absolutely. Again, to me, my curiosity goes like, why are there so many today? Because back when I was a kid, I don't recall anyone at my school having a peanut allergy. Now, obviously, it's just mainstream. So that right there is like, what is going on? Like, I start getting curious. Like, there's something within us, and there's lots of things that you can start connecting it to, but like that alone is what's going on. And so again, it's within the person. And unless there's a genetic thing that can't be changed, I think homeopathy absolutely can be so deep. And if it is, like I had said, or like you mentioned, like passed down even, or whether it's genetic or more the energetic, or the miasm can really be powerful for that, to really go deep. I've seen kids. So again, like severe allergies, working with a homeopath obviously is necessary. But eventually get back, less and less. Seasonal allergies too, just eventually every summer or every spring, they just get less and less. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've even with hay fever and tapping, I've cured my hay fever allergy by just tapping I'm safe. Simply because in that environment, obviously there's something going on that is stimulating my body into thinking that, I am in danger. So I've managed to, over a couple of seasons, like you said, just to do that. And
oh wow, that's awesome.
It's really lowered, if not gotten rid. I'll check now in a few months or a few weeks. The tree pollen and the grass pollen is going to be coming out again. So it's a similar thing, isn't it? Just training the body reacting in that way.
Oh, that's really, that's so interesting with the tapping. Like my son has the one that had all the ear issues had severe seasonal allergies, and I don't have any. So that, again, it's interesting. Like we blame the pollen, or we blame, it's there, but I don't have any, and he's like, eyes are water, like just everything. So clearly something, and it's not the pollen, it's in us that's responding. So when you understand that, again, that mindset shift, but like seeing a homeopath, like, goes deep to uproot the susceptibility over time. And then in the moment, there's certainly remedies, like allium cepa is made from onion. And that, we think about when you cut an onion, what happens? The burning eyes, runny nose. So that's a very common allergy medicine, because that's a lot of symptoms of allergy. So I just gave my son that last night, actually, a couple doses, and it's amazing. So in the moment it's helping, but then we're also doing the deeper work to uproot so it's less each year.
So funny, because I'm thinking like the crossover with tapping in a way is because you can do a lot of like high level tapping to in the moment feel better, but actually doing the deeper work with a practitioner, going back to the root causes, and then the multiple other tools like we throw in the mix as well. I do a lot of ancestral work. Past life comes up naturally sometimes in the conversation, things like that. That then stops it from going forward. So you don't need the ongoing remedy, or you don't need
that's exactly
it. Because you've dealt with the root, but in the moment. So the home kit is great for kind of navigating the everyday or not the everyday, sorry, the more acute issues, but the chronic stuff, the things that are the patterns that are coming up all the time, that's where the deeper work with the practitioner would come.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly it.
Um, where does birth, and you mentioned birth and in utero, because again, in my work, our own birth, from my experience, is so influential on our lives, and often it doesn't show up till a lot later. Often maybe when we become parents ourselves and go through the birth experience again, it kind of awakens maybe some of our own traumas. How do you see the birth and in utero experience impacting?
So yeah, a lot of times with kids, because a lot of times when I'm seeing adults, they don't know, they don't have their mother there, they weren't sure, but the state of the mother is powerful. So for children, most of the time the intake comes from the mom. And yeah, that state she was in, if there was an accident or a shock or a grief or physical illness or medications, even anything like that, is really important, because clearly they're one, like you're literally one being, even though you have separate souls and separate energies, you're still strongly connected. And as you know, after we give birth, the connection we have with our children is like nothing else. So that's so powerful, because a lot of times, like I said, when the child's coming for an issue, if it's a behavioral issue, which is most often, and connected with the physical things like that, like ear infections and what have you, I look at what was going on, and even the mother. And that's why I encourage even a mother-child like a lot of times, a lot of practitioners won't take some children without treating the mother first. And I do find it very powerful, because that energetic, when you help the mother shift and become more harmonized, then the child sometimes might not even need a remedy, because that they feel like we feed off our parents, right? The children feel us. And so when you start with ourselves and shift, it's so powerful for our children. So yeah, in utero, when they're there, if whatever has happened can be a significant, and many times the remedy is the same. I prescribe the same remedy for a mother and child. After case taking, it just happened to be the same remedy, which was really cool.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about, so I'm thinking of booking a session with you.
Yeah.
So I had a loss. We lost our daughter, and then a year and a week later, I had another baby. And obviously it was quite, timeline was very short. And looking back and in retrospect, I wasn't ready mentally and I wasn't ready physically, but I did feel like at the time it was a relief, but then also brought on whole other stuff, which is what led me to stopping in a way, because I was like, I need something to help me through this. And he was born by planned C-section, and he has control issues, which I feel is because we decided to take him out before he was ready, and so do you see that, like the impact of that on kids?
Yeah, I think again, it's the whole case and the whole picture.
Yeah,
so
also he was in a body that was filled of grief for a period of time, and I physically wasn't ready, or mentally wasn't
for sure.
for it. So he was in that energy. So yeah, it would be interesting to work with you to actually see some of his symptoms now as a 7.5-year-old. Would they be eased with some support?
Oh, absolutely. I think because they absorb that, like even not even consciously aware, like he has no memory, but that energy of that fear, loss, sadness, anger, frustration, whatever, like that's a lot to feel and absorb. And so they're taking on that. How we feel when we're with people, even we don't even know, you can kind of feel. So imagine, and so that's how powerful that connection is. That's the depth that remedies get to, is to help move that and unlock it. And if it's creating physical symptoms or behavior things or sleep issues or wetting the bed, or there's just so much. So again, you take the whole picture. It's quite,
he's
still profound.
He's only just stopped weeing at nighttime, actually, and he's 7.5. So that was definitely that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
there's
just,
usually a lot of fear in those cases because there's been quite a few of older children that are still wetting the bed, and there's always a fear. There's something clearly, in there,
Mm.
and yeah,
I just want to say for anybody listening who has also gone through a similar thing, I know, and I'm very comfortable with the fact that I didn't consciously inflict anything on Casper. It was just what happened, right? So, I didn't set out to imprint him with grief,
oh
or,
no, 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 no. Yeah,
nobody consciously does. It just what naturally happens. And like I did my EFT first sessions while he was in utero, so there was a lot of time what I did work hard to clear, but
yeah.
probably not going to clear everything, and like that's okay. And I'm comfortable and confident that I have done and I am doing the best that I
Mhm.
can as a mother. And I hope that anybody listening who's also going through the same situation or has had loss and then children afterwards, that they also don't
Mhm.
feel guilt or shame, because this is energetics, and it's the way our bodies work, and it's not something you consciously choose to do. And sometimes you're consciously trying to avoid the thing that you want, like that is actually happening. So yeah, I just wanted to make that note that there is no one's at fault for any of this.
No,
The,
I think,
the
yeah.
ancestral piece and the past life piece, like it's just what is happening. It's not because anybody's chosen to consciously bring through pain or trauma from the past.
I think that's so important you brought that up, because exactly. And I do a podcast too, actually, with two other homeopaths, and we have an episode about heal the mother, heal the child. And again, which is what we talk about, the energetics. And absolutely, it's not to put shame or guilt. It's the opposite. It's almost like we are this powerful. Like, let's start with healing ourselves, because we can impact our children so much. Because being a mom of four and my older kids, I get it. Like, I'm still on my journey. We're always healing and evolving and
Mhm.
growing, of the guilt and the redos. Like, I'm like, oh, I messed up. It's just like we just want to go back and redo it with how we currently are, but we had to be in that. And it's so powerful to step into that, to use all that like as part of his experience. Like, maybe he had to go through this, you had to go
Yeah,
through this, and to
yeah,
see it as empowerment, not shame and guilt and blame. Absolutely. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's not being a mom. I get it, but
yeah.
I use that to empower me instead of go down the hole of, oh, I
Shame.
took, yeah,
Yeah. No, shame and guilt are like the densest, heaviest things we could feel. So I am
absolutely.
very anti-guilt, as some people will know after listening to my podcast. It's not something I encourage at all. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make that
Yeah,
clear. But
no,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
important.
that is really interesting. I'd like to explore that further to see
Yeah,
if there's something there that could support him. He also struggles with reading.
yeah.
So his confidence is really knocked at the moment. And so I would love
Oh
to.
yeah. No, that's exactly the type of cases I see. And yeah, it's amazing. Like, focus is better. They're, easier. They're going to bed easier. It's just like, they're like, what the heck
Dream
happened to
child.
my kid? Yeah. And again, it's so personal, and it takes
Mm,
time. And, you think of how long with children, they're so vital and powerful. So we often see things quite quickly, but you think of adults too, how long we've lived like this, or how, so it's not like a quick fix. And so
yeah.
follow-ups are really important, because you don't just take a remedy and off you go. Like, we need to, I include the follow-up for that reason, because it's like,
Mm,
let's see how you responded. Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change the remedy? Do we need to go up in potency? Do we need, because sometimes one dose, that's all it, every 2 weeks, one dose every day. So it all depends on the person, their sensitivity. And then we follow up, and it's like an onion. And then in that moment, I see a different person sometimes in front of me from the very first consult. So now it's like, okay, now you're different. The remedy's different now. So as you shift, the remedy goes with you. Yeah, that's
so
again
it's
why.
kind of a journey that you're taking with
Yeah.
the consultant and the remedy itself.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, so it like no two, I suppose no two people or no two prescriptions are the same in a way. So
No, never.
right. Okay. So it's very, very, very personal. That's
So if
amazing.
someone says, oh, I have anxiety, what do I take? Like you can imagine now understanding all this, why.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's literally almost 1,000 remedies that if I look up, we have this thing called a repertory, and we go in, and if I put in anxiety, there's literally like 1,000. And then within that, there's we call them rubrics and sub rubrics. And so it's like, well, how do you feel? Like what triggers it? How are you feeling it? Where do you feel it in your body? And then we go back from birth till now, and I get the whole picture. So it's not the anxiety, like that word, what does that mean? What does
Yeah.
that mean for
The
you?
label. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how unique it is. Yeah.
Amazing. So just to leave oh, just a couple of things to cover. Right. Is there anything it
Yeah.
doesn't work on, and any time we should not use it, or any risks?
Yeah, no, I mean, homeopathy is safe for everybody during pregnancy, breastfeeding, babies. It's so, it's always best to work with a practitioner just for dosing, and especially if you're unsure, but it's safe, even on medications, and it's great. Like there are no interactions and side effects. So there's really no time not
No
to.
risk. Mhm.
There are maybe a couple remedies like near the end of pregnancy not to do, because it could help bring on, which again, that's why homeopathy for labor and delivery is so amazing.
Mm.
But again, you'd want to work with a homeopath with all that. And about, I think you had asked me who shouldn't use it, or is there times, or
Yeah.
what
So is there,
question?
when should we not use homeopathy? I suppose if your leg is
Yeah.
falling off or you're having a heart
Well,
attack.
obviously, yeah, if it's life threatening, you need to go get an emergency
Yeah.
room, or you can't breathe, or absolutely. I mean, you need to get emergency medical care. Absolutely. But really than that, like there's not any time not to use it, because it's so supportive. Like it's really supporting. So even if you broke a bone, you're going to go to the hospital and get a cast, like absolutely. But then you bring in a remedy like arnica right away to help with the swelling and the pain. And then some Vitam is a remedy that helps stimulate the body to fuse the bone. And so you're just helping support the body with what it knows how to fuse the bone, like that's what it does. And so we just help that. And then there's even cell salts, which is a whole other cellular support that you can bring in, and that's really amazing to learn at home, and because it stimulates more of the body, it's more mineral based, and so it's not a supplement by any means. It's stimulating the body again to help to be able to absorb those things that we eat, because again, that's why supplements, when we take a supplement or take it, we're like, do we even know if our body needs this, and are we absorbing it, or is there something blocking that absorption? And so again, there's so much depth when you start being
Wow.
treated homeopathically to help unlock things of why perhaps you're not absorbing things too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So the home stuff, let's just quick recap for
Yeah.
anyone now going, yes, sign me up. I want some of this in my life.
Yeah.
The aconite for coughs is what I've been using it for.
The aconitum. Yeah. That is amazing for anything that comes on fast and furious, quick. Like you think of aconite, or if you got cold, like a chill, like if you're out in a cold day and then something like you get a fever, or you get wet, like if you're after swimming even in the summer and something happens, or a shock, like if something shocked you, like anything that's jarring, like a intense to the nervous system, the mental emotional level or physical, you would want that remedy. And so it's one of my top 5. Absolutely. And if you could only have one, well, arnica is for sure, and then aconite, absolutely. Like panic attack, if you have anything that comes on like fast and furious, like after a fright, if you're hyperventilating and you have a panic attack, you would use aconite. So again, it's that one remedy, helps with fevers. It helps with sore throats and ear infection, panic attack. That's where it's so amazing, and the art of it, to learn. So again, you learn the situation that would call for aconite, not, aconite doesn't just match this. If you have it presenting after all those things, or it came on fast, like 104 fever, and it came out of nowhere, you would give aconite, or a headache, a pounding headache. Yeah, so it's so amazing. So that one definitely.
Wow.
A
Yeah.
cough.
Okay.
Oh, and it's the number 1 remedy for croup. So like you said, it's for a cough that just starts out of nowhere, aconitum will most times, 100% of the times, I'm almost confident to say, would like knock it out. If it was indicated. Yeah.
Okay. What else then? So we've got arnica, aconite. Let's do top 5.
Oh, okay. Nux vomica. which I know you're familiar with, you said.
Yeah, Nux Farm. Yeah.
That is, so again, so keywords are really something when I teach. I just did like a 101 class to really get the basics, and I went over these top 5. Overindulging. So anything that comes on, like, you eat too much at your holiday meal, or you have too much alcohol, too much of a good time, or even kids overdoing it, like at a party, and they're running hard and it's a hot summer day and they're eating candy and ice cream, and then all of a sudden they have a fever. That would match Nux vomica. So again, you can see the fever, the Nux vomica essence is very different than the aconite essence, even though they could both help a fever. But in general, like a lot of gas, bloating, vomiting is very Nux vomica too. After it usually comes on after like overindulging or overdoing it. And they're usually very irritable and they're cold. So again, once you understand the essence of a remedy, then the person that has that, starts to become easier to know when to choose that remedy. It's a great one for kids because it's just overdoing it. They have too much candy, can't sleep. Nux vomica would be great.
Right. And I used to take it for nausea when I was pregnant.
Yeah. It's one of the top one for that as well. Yeah, there's a lot for morning sickness and things like that. But Nux vomica is great for if you feel nauseous and that dry retching, almost like you can't like get it out, but you feel like you have to. Yeah.
Okay. And then number 4.
Let's see, which is gelsemium. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is so great for like, it's more of a slow onset. So it's like that you feel like aconite, if all of a sudden it comes on fast, like, oh my God, I have this headache and pounding. Whereas gelsemium's like, I kind of feel like that scratchy throat and I'm tired, low grade fever, like that flu-y, it's a number 1 remedy for the flu. So that very achy, slow, very achy, cold, kind of nervous feeling. Gelsemium is amazing. It's a great one. And it's also good for anticipatory anxiety. So like before flying on a plane, or before you have to give a speech or get in, your child has a play, or is one of the ones that is great to help calm that fearful nervousness as well. So that's one I love because it's a great flu remedy. So it's just so often indicated. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And last one.
I would say arsenicum album. I don't know if that one is.
Oh yeah, I have that. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I thought like arson, like that.
Yeah, again, it's arsenic, so that's poisonous, but once it's diluted, so that's like the premier one for food poisoning. So again, as much as I'm saying they're individual, that one encompasses because most people have very similar symptoms when they have food poisoning. So that's why we can match it to that. But arsenicum album is also great for sore throats, colds, everything. That's why these remedies help the same thing, but then if you have the same thing, there's different remedies. So that's where it can be. But arsenicum album is great for like diarrhea, like a stomach bug. The vomiting diarrhea is really the stomach flu is a great one if there's diarrhea as well. And they can be very anxious too, a little more nervous. So it's, when we use it deeply and chronically, it can be very deep for anxious people worried about their health. They can be fidgety, restless, kind of wanting to know, am I okay? So if your child has a sore throat too, because it's burning. So burning is a keynote. So again, like a lot of diarrhea might be burning in nature. If you have a burning sore throat, so if they fit that personality part of arsenicum.
How do you remember all this? Like there's so
to
remember about each remedy.
Yeah. Again, years of study. We've studied for 3 to 4 years when we go to school for this. And we learn we call these, polycrest remedies, really common ones. And, so I really get to know the remedy. Like I know my child. So a lot of them I know. And again, like there's thousands and thousands and thousands of remedies that are really small and unknown. And, but these ones are very well known and they're great. Like that's why they're in home kits. So to learn at home. Yeah.
So obviously a lot of this stuff is accessible from the local health.
Oh yeah. All of those. Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But what about say you and I had a consultation and you recommended me something that was quite rare. Like how would I actually go about getting it?
So Helios, it being where you are, I'm sure that's easy to order from. They have everything. Yeah, they have every single remedy you could ever So that in the US and Canada, I'm actually Canadian, so I am in Canada as well, but currently living in the States. And I drop ship from a pharmacy here, ones that would be rare. So I would provide that. But if it's overseas, Helios is fantastic. They have everything. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we shouldn't worry about kind of accessing everything.
No,
Really.
the basics you can get, like Helios is great. And then boron. I'm not sure if you have that over there as common as we do, boron company. And then you can buy them online from their site as well.
Okay, brilliant. And then you mentioned dosing. So I've often given kind of one tablet. I know that the girls in my membership have recommended putting the dose in water and then tapping the water glass. And I'm kind of confused about that. How do you take the remedy and how best to do it? Because sometimes I give it after they've eaten their breakfast and I wonder, oh my God, is it going to work? Is it not?
Yeah, and those are guidelines. Like technically when I give a remedy, I give kind of guidelines. And I just did a 101 class, like I said last week, that went over all of this. So it's actually really great. We broke all that down. But yeah, that can be overwhelming. But really, again, once you understand and the art of it, it just becomes like you just know. Yeah, so dry dosing or wet dosing is how I refer to that. And, I always say 3 pellets, as a dose. But again, the reason for that, because a lot of vials, it will say 5. And like you just said, I gave 1. So the number, pardon?
Is that at one time in one go?
Yeah. But so the reason is it's never the amount of pellets. So you could give that whole vial at one time, and that would be the same as the 1 pellet.
Okay.
So it's
I've only ever given 1.
And that's fine.
Okay.
The reason I was just trained for some reason with 4, actually, from my mentor, my homeopath. And then I started just to go down to 3. And the reason is when they make the remedy, they're blank pellets and they use a liquid and they medicate it and they drop it on and then they shake them. So it's just to ensure each pellet was covered, but energetically, theoretically, they should be all covered because it's all spreading. So that's really, and I think each homeopath kind of has their way, but 1 pellet is very common as well. And then you save pellets too, if you're giving 4 or 5 each time. But the thing to remember is less is more, and the number of pellets doesn't matter. Generally if you were to take that whole vial 1 time, it would have the same effect as 1 pellet because you're just stimulating the body. But if you were to take 1 pellet every hour, that would have a very big effect versus taking like the whole vial at one time, because every time you take it, you're nudging the vital force. So less is more. So if you take it like an acute situation and you take a dose and there's improvement, then you don't repeat it. So at that moment when they regress, like say you have a fever and you gave a dose and within they started to come down, and then the minute it starts to come back, then you would redose. So it's always the person. So it's not a set rule, like dose every hour, every 2 hours, every 4. There's general guidelines. If something comes on like fast and furious, you probably want to dose quite frequently at the beginning because you kind of need that. If something's slow, it's, you could dose probably every couple hours. But again, you go by the person, and less is more. So if there's improvement, you stop because you're nudging the body to get going, to do its own thing.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing, I suppose, maybe intuitively. Like as soon as the coughs, I don't hear the cough anymore. I don't even think to dose them, like it's like, oh, that's gone now. I don't need to think about it. Or then the next day, the cough might come back. And this is what I did last week. I gave aconite and then the Pulsatilla one.
Pulsatilla, yeah.
Pulsatilla. I need to get the names right. Because it started to feel more chesty in the morning, whereas previously it was a bit drier. So I thought, anyway, this is just from reading the little book. But when he's not coughing, I'm not giving him anything because he doesn't need it.
Because you're literally stimulating his body to do the work. And if it's been stimulated enough, then why do you need to keep doing that? So less is always more. I know we're so programmed to take it, twice a day for 10 days, something like that.
The antibiotic conditioning, I must take it then and these hours and for this long. And if I don't take it the full course, then it's not going to work. And like that is a program, isn't it? That we're
because understanding why, because it's focused on the bacteria. Right. We have to kill the bacteria. This is completely different. This is focused on us to empower us to kind of kick that bacteria out. So it's very, very different, the intention and the energetic behind it. And so then when you understand, so again, it really steps into trusting the body and understanding our body's ability, then you can start to understand the philosophy behind and why we do these things.
I think it's amazing. Absolutely
Really
amazing.
unlearning, a lot of unlearning,
Yes.
a lot, and relearning. And that's scary. When we've grown up and been programmed, we're so fearful now. So it's really stepping into that and questioning things. I really encourage, people to question and to ask questions, and that's why I think with moms, so many moms, I mean, I say moms, but dads too, but typically it's mothers that when you go to the doctor and you feel like you're trusting your intuition, but you're doing it anyway, like that conflict, I get it, because that's how I felt sick. I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I don't know what else. And that's sad, because you're not going to just leave your child. So again, we got to give ourselves grace. Like, we're doing what we know in this moment. And then when you know more, and that's why I love working with moms, because there is so much more. And, it's like my daughter who's 10 has never had any like Tylenol or like any fever, nothing. And I have it in my house. So I'm not saying that like for an emergency or something like that. Like, absolutely. I just don't need it. So again, it's not like one or the other, and there's no side. It's just more that you can bring in. And if you have to use something in an allergy day, and like, take what you need to take. Like, it's not like shame that I have to, no, just do what you need to do. And as long as you're empowering from within too, and understanding, that's really the power piece, and really stepping into that. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that's a lovely way to end the podcast.
Yeah.
The work that you do one-to-one consultations, but you also mentioned this one-on-one and kind of class.
Yeah.
Tell me about those. They sound brilliant.
Yeah, it's been great. So I did a cold and flu, which was fantastic because it was back in the fall. And it went really well. So I have that. I just don't have my new site up yet. So it's coming soon. I'll let you know when it's up. And it's going to have that to purchase, because I recorded all that. And then I did a 101, and I think I'd love to run it again, but even it's going to be its own thing that you can just record and download. And it just covered the basics, kind of essentially what we talked about, but really more in depth, like understanding us, our power, the susceptibility, dosing, the top 5 remedies. Actually, I added 2 more in there in the class, but so that'll be there too. I hope in the next few weeks that it should be there. And then I am working on a cell salt class. I know I mentioned that the cell salt a little bit. So that's a whole other little thing to learn too. And then my vision is to do a bigger one, like with modules, and really go deeper, like like injuries and burns, or even PMS, or, like women's health issues and stuff like that you can treat acutely at home.
Endometriosis, period pain, menopause symptoms. I mean,
menopause is huge. Again, so in the moment you could help treat, but again, that stuff is you want to see a homeopath, because again, even with menopause, there are a handful that are great if you have a hot flash and you can't sleep. But if you see a homeopath and and sometimes that's all people want, is just kind of help me through this. But if you do go deeper, it can kind of balance out, so you don't even have those in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I think a lot of women listening to this are heading towards, if not are already there. So it is a very difficult period of time that having someone to support you and hold your hand through it would be really useful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. That was fascinating. I can't wait to learn more. Like, that's like the tip of the iceberg, really, isn't it?
I know, I would love to go deeper and again, not to overwhelm, because it really can be made simple. And again, it's just standing back and really understanding our power, and that we can heal ourselves. And that's really essentially the foundation of this medicine. So we're choosing a remedy to help heal, like to stimulate our bodies. So really that's, I'm trying to simplify it to really bring it into more homes. And
absolutely. If there's things that we can take that are natural and supportive with no risk, then why wouldn't we try it? I think
and why are we not hearing more about this? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So I'm going to link to your website and how people might be able to follow and work with you, and then also these classes that just sound incredible as well. But I'd love you to share your podcast title with me, and I'll stick it in the notes as well, because I think if you're chatting with your colleagues around, the deeper aspects of these different areas of the modality, then I think that would be really interesting for people as well.
It's called Vital Force.
Okay.
And we talk about remedies, and then we just talk about we share our personal stories. Sometimes we just record ourselves chatting. So the last episode I think was a mixed mash. So I think it's fun, it's light, and it's really empowering. It's really encouraging you to tap into your power and understand healing. So yeah, we bring a lot of fun to it and light. So it's not like a deep, and then we do talk about remedies. It's a bit of everything, but just centered around connecting to yourself. It's really about connecting back to yourself. And that's the beginning of it all. And that's really the essence of the podcast. Yeah.
I think, to be honest, that's where I see the whole world moving. It's like and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. You're doing what you're doing. Why Joe Soap down the road is doing what they're doing. It's, we're remembering, we're stripping away the conditioning. We're trying to do it as quickly, as painlessly as we can. And I suppose that's where maybe the homeopathy is so good, because it's effective and I presume slightly painless, like there may be a release of energy or emotion, but probably getting to the root of stuff really without you having to think about it.
No, and that's it. Sometimes it's like, you're trying all the things, whether it's physical, and I get so many clients that have done all the things, either in the holistic world, cleanses and that can be stressful in the body, and it's expensive, and it's draining and depleting in that sense, because we're always continually thinking we have to fix ourselves, and we're so disconnected, literally, even though we're so connected, electrically drawn technology, but we're so disconnected because of that. Like, we're connected from people, from ourselves, and we're just being pulled farther with all these gadgets and busyness. And so it's really coming back home to ourselves and trusting and going within. It's all about that.
And we're coming back to nature, and this is a natural, nature-based nudge that allows us to heal. And that's just so beautiful, actually, because I know the definition of nature doesn't actually include humans, and like that just shows you how disconnected we have become from it. But actually doing this work with you and the homeopathy is a return to nature and home, and that's just so beautiful.
It really is. It's connecting to ourselves, and so you can connect with those around you. And
and then the beauty of it, we pass all that on to our kids, so they don't have to do all the work that we've just had to do.
Exactly.
A few years of trauma.
And again, that's going back to the piece of empower, like using as a mom to empower, not shame, like step into that power to think, and having that support. And it's really, support is everything. And it's like homeopathy is like a partnership. It's not, I'm not fixing you, I'm here with you, and I'm going to choose the remedy so you have the awareness and do the work.
I love that. You're a guide.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Krista.
Thank you.